Hello, everybody. Today we are going to be announcing the July Art Dare, which is focusing on personifications. If you would like to grow as an artist and you can't afford an art class, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof: critiques, tutorials, and professional development. Let's get started by explaining what a personification is. Basically, you're giving something which is not human the characteristics of a human. Usually it's something that's intangible. And I think the best personification that I think most people are aware of is death. I mean, the cliche of death is typically a skeleton or some creepy looking figure like this one from the Seventh Seal. And you see this a lot, not just in films and illustrations, but also in poetry. So, for example, here is a poem by Emily Dickinson, which reads, "Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality." So that's a great way to refer to this idea of creating a character based on something which is not a character. And you can see from some of these examples, there's been so many takes on personifying death. And it's really cool to see the historical versions like this older sculpture. But apparently Brad Pitt was the personification of death as well. So it's not always a skeleton. I didn't see this movie. I heard it was really bad. Plus, not a Brad Pitt fan. Maybe some of you saw it. But anyway, he was the personification of death. And we also have Gustave Doré, one of my underrated artists, doing somewhat of a cliche Grim Reaper type of scenario, but still awesome composition. Gustave Doré, love you. And then even things like in cartoons. For example, Adventure Time, which my kids are obsessed with, by the way. And you've got this cowboy like dog skull. So there's a lot of representations of death. Some of them are very gruesome. Some of them are really funny. You can really take your own spin on it. Now, this art dare, what we're going to ask you to do, you're going to illustrate your worst trait and your best trait, and you're going to personify them. Now, how you choose to do this is up to you in terms of media. And somebody had asked earlier, do you have to do two separate drawings? You don't. If you want to draw two personifications, but you want to combine them into a single drawing, that's totally fine. I think it should be really fun to see if you do that. Maybe there's an interaction between your best trait and your worst trait. And so Jordan and Deepti, they did this recent draw along a couple of days ago where they actually did the July Art Dare. So if you watch the first, I'd say 20 minutes of the stream, you'll get to watch them actually do the brainstorming process. So I'd really recommend watching the stream because it's a great demonstration of different ways that you can go. So for example, I thought I would give you how I would get started, which is just making a list. I think sometimes it's nice to have a couple of options to choose from. So I went through my worst traits. I think for a lot of us, it's easier to list the worst traits than it is to list the good traits. Tell me in the chat, how many people here find it easier to list your worst traits? And also, what's funny about this is depending on how you look at it, there are certain traits which could be bad or good. It just depends on how you go about it. I am totally guilty of the jealousy thing. I am the most impatient person on the planet. I can be pushy because I'm impatient. I mean, a lot of these worst traits are related. And I am demanding. Although, I don't know, I reel it in a little bit for my staff because they would leave in a heartbeat if I was as demanding as I actually wanted to be. My best traits, and again, these could be worst traits as well. I think I'm a pretty driven person. I'm very ambitious. You know, I want the Professor Lieu empire. We're building it right now. So the ambition is definitely there. I'm a prompt person. I'm on time. Also, I get really pissy when people are late. And I'm very focused. So just start with this. Make a list and just comb through a lot of these ideas and ask yourself, okay, which one would be easier for me to personify? Or maybe you're trying to challenge yourself to do one that's a lot tougher. Jazz is saying, what about physical traits like a big nose or bad posture? You can definitely do that. I think it's a little bit more literal, though. I do think that these traits that are abstract, they're a little bit more of a challenge. But I'm going to leave it to all of you to interpret this however you want to do it. Yeah, a lot of people are saying, like Ariel, easier to list worst. And Dara says, as long as this doesn't turn into a self-hatred thing, yeah, don't spend too long on the worst traits. I think as long as you just have 3 or 4, that's totally enough. This is just a starting point. So that way you have something to think about. So this is interesting, like Anna saying, ambition is a tricky one. It pushes me, but it causes a lot of grief. Yeah, that's a great example that it's not always that straightforward. And I think it's really fun for everybody here to see how we're going to interpret all of these traits very differently. No, Kwee, I'm not a Capricorn. I'm a Gemini. I'm very talkative. Doesn't that make sense? All right. So this is an example of what Deepti did during that stream. And her worst trait that she chose to show was overthinking. And you know something? I know Deepti's work pretty well. I know what her style is like. But I have never felt so much sympathy for one of Deepti's characters. This poor guy, like, I just feel so bad for him. I don't know if it's the sweat coming down or the pathetic little hairs. I don't know. I just feel so bad for him just existing. It just feels painful. Or maybe it's just the head feels too big. I don't know. But play with these personifications, because I think that's what's fun about them, is that we interact with them almost like people. And yet they're these abstract ideas that we're talking about. Luna says, I like this prompt. It's also an exercise for self-reflection and hopefully some self-kindness. Absolutely. And I think recently, the last 2 art dares have been fairly media-driven. Like we did the body art, we did the abstract art. This is one you really got to think. And of course, the technique is a part of it. But the brainstorming process and the thinking through of how you're going to develop these characters, I'm hoping it's a good thinking challenge, because we try to fluctuate between art dares that try to get you to exercise your different, quote, art muscles, because we don't want them to all be the same. We want them to have a lot of variety. W315 says his brain is so inflamed, his eyes have no room. And Sarah says the character is so relatable. You know, quickly, I don't know that it's a he. I never asked Deepti. I just assumed. But anyway, maybe that's not fair for me to assume. Okay, so Jordan did his worst trait as anxious. I think a lot of us can relate to this for sure. And this is a no-brainer. With Jordan, absolutely, he is the king of hardworking. Nobody works harder than Jordan. And so he did this character. I think he's like half a Boy Scout, half a construction worker. I mean, either way, this dude is industrious. And so it's really fun to see how different they can be. All right, for sure, there's a lot of skills that are going to go into this that are not related to the drawing part or painting, whatever you choose to do. I think brainstorming is a really big part of this art dare. And I would encourage everybody here, if you're hanging out in the Discord, and you should, because it's so fun in there. We do have a channel in there for art dares. And I would love to see everybody create a mood board and do some of the brainstorming exercises and post them, so everybody can see what that process is. Probably a lot of you are going to have to do thumbnail sketches. And so I would say that actually almost half this art dare is the thinking, the brainstorming, the development. And that's very different than, say, the abstract art dare, which really was almost a physical response to the materials and experimentation. This really is a thinking dare. And this is a very good point from Blue Wolf, who says, note from the examples that these personifications are not self-portraits. That's a very important distinction because it would be easy to assume, oh, this has to be a character that's me. No, it's based on you, but the actual character itself is not you. And I think that does help because it makes the character a little bit more separate from you, and you can have more fun with it for that reason. So Emma is asking, can they be creatures with human features? Yep. It has to be some being. So if it's a creature like human and vice versa, that would be fine. However you want to integrate that. Sarah's asking, how can I integrate the Discord community as a person who isn't familiar with Discord? Well, anybody who's not in Discord, you need to get a Discord account first, and then you can join our server. And the invite link is in the YouTube video description below. And we actually have a video on our YouTube channel that walks you through step by step exactly how to get set up. So just look up Art Prof Discord, and it's the 7-minute video. You want to watch that one. At the very end, I show you how to get set up. So take a look at that. Paula says it doesn't have to show a face. Nope. It just has to be a personification, but it could be a figure that's hiding their face, that doesn't have a head. I mean, there's so many ways you can interpret this. And I would think really carefully about the cliche, because if you think about Lady Justice, or if you think about Victory, the winged Victory figure, which we're looking at here, that is oftentimes for a lot of people their first thought. And actually, it's really fun to look at Inside Out. Who here saw this movie? Studio Tindril, you just read my mind. This was a great movie. Oh my gosh. The way that they personified the characters, the way they figured out the colors in relation to the emotions. This would be a great reference for people because it literally is the characters are personifications of all of these emotions. And this is a really good point. Like Seven Angelic says, a faceless figure can be quite disturbing, or a figure that's hiding their face. I mean, think about what color says about the character, even the posture of the character, what kind of clothing they're wearing. There's a lot of things to be thinking about. For example, this is the god of fear. This is a mosaic from ancient Greece. And this is Girogen. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And he's supposed to represent the southern polar star. And actually, this is one of the most well-known personifications that I think a lot of people don't think about because it really is just so common. I mean, most people have seen this poster, at least if you live in the US, you probably have. And it's interesting to read about the history of this. It was made by an artist named J.M. Flagg. This was in 1917, and they created this poster to recruit people to join the army. And so it says, I want you for US Army. And you can see the way he's pointing at you. It's very, I suppose, confrontational, and it invites an interaction with Uncle Sam as the person looking at the poster. And I think it's one of the most brilliant personifications. And it's one that was used many, many times since then, and people still continue to use it. So here's a really recent political cartoon by Bruce Plant about Mark Zuckerberg unfriending Uncle Sam. And we also have Norman Rockwell, who did the Saturday Evening Post version of Uncle Sam. So this is a very well-known personification that people have been using for years and years and years. So it's interesting how some of them, like death, almost take on a life of their own. By the way, I want to say thank you so much to Jill Kama for the super sticker. And you know what, you guys? That gives me the opportunity to do... That's what's going to happen anytime one of you gives us a super sticker, because as you know, your support here really helps us make sure that Art Prof stays 100% free and accessible to all. Oh, this is a good one. Yeah, Anna, Rosie the Riveter. Absolutely. She's a personification. That's terrific. Really good point. By the way, those of you who are liking that little cat that just came on the screen, we have a few more of those animations that will pop up when you give us a super chat. I'm not going to tell you which one. Let's just say there's a few more. So you may want to think about those super chats if you want to see those animations again. All right. There's also a lot of personifications based on geography, rivers. So for example, this is a historical image of the river Ganges. I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but typically speaking in history, the river has been represented as a goddess, and she's always wearing a white crown. She's sitting on a crocodile holding a water lily and a flute. So this is, again, another personification that we have certain expectations for the way she's been portrayed. Some of you could do that if you wanted, but I'm just giving you examples of how personifications aren't always a one-time thing. Oftentimes, they do last throughout history, as we saw with the Uncle Sam. Dara says, does it have to be a living creature, or can we do symbols like a logo or flags? It's got to be a living creature. You can mix animals and humans, but no symbols. Thank you for asking. I'm so glad when all of you ask these questions, because oftentimes it's just stuff I don't think about. And so when you all ask, it's really helpful. And also, we have it in Western culture as well, the personification of the River Nile. So this is very common, people personifying certain rivers and geographical locations. And this is interesting. There's a whole history of people personifying countries. This one's from 1775. You can see it's not cool as far as portrayal of certain countries here. So not a kind image at all. But this is something that people have thought about, a country as a person. And so that's another way to consider that. Slepnir says, yes, total denial. Wonderful. All right, so this is from the Berlin porcelain factory, and it's fun to just go in and pick apart, well, why did they make these choices? I mean, these are not nice. The one of the Africa figure is really not cool, but it's interesting to review some of these. Well, it looks like Sarah is giving us our next super sticker, so I'm just going to have to give you the next super chat anime. So there, you've seen Alex and you've seen Kat. All right, this is another one, Berlin Porcelain Factory, showing the allegorical figure of Asia. And this is such a beautiful sculpture. This is by Richmond Barthay. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's called The Awakening of Africa. And this was made in 1959. And I actually hadn't heard of this artist before. I started assembling slides for this stream, but he was an African-American sculptor, and he was associated with the Harlem Renaissance. I mean, there just aren't that many sculptors out there, and to find one who was working during that time period is really wonderful. But it's like, wow, what a difference when you go from these kitschy Berlin porcelain factory figurines that really are offensive to an image like this, which just has so much emotion and longing. And this is a nude figure. I mean, there's no clothing or anything, and yet it's extremely powerful. So look at the range, because there's a lot going on in there. Wow, thank you so much for the super chat, Kwee. I guess we're just going to have to give all of you this. By the way, DP is the one that made these animations. I'm not taking any credit. The only thing I did, I added the sound effects. That was pretty much it. So if you like these, you can tell Deep, because I'm not responsible at all. Cass says, we need Art Prof staff emojis. Oh, you want new ones? Yeah, we should, because I have 3. I have the otter, the piranha soup, and the piranha. I guess we need some more for the other staff, because they're kind of hilarious. Slepnir is asking, is Kathy Kolowitz's work of personification? Yeah, she has a bunch of pieces where she personifies death, and she has other ones. I can't think of them right now, but she's got a bunch, so definitely look up her work. Well, I'm glad all of you like the animations, because they're just so hilarious. All right, this is Sokari Douglas Kemp, and she is a Nigerian sculptor who works today. And she works in London and does these incredible steel sculptures. Like I said, there are not that many sculptors out there compared to the number of painters, but finding people that work in steel is really extraordinary. It's extremely difficult. How many people here have ever worked with metal, whether it was casting or maybe you were doing some stuff on your house? It's such a difficult material to use. And I think it does very much affect the way that we perceive the personification. Like, picture if these figures were made out of clay, you would look at them very, very differently. And so I love these personifications, the way that they interact. It says Europe supported by Africa and America. And so you have to think about, wow, okay, what are they representing? Why is it being supported by Africa and America? I mean, this is loaded. And so your personification does not necessarily have to be this loaded. But what I'm saying is that there's an incredible range of what you can do with personifications. As you've seen, some of them were hilarious, some of them are political. This one is also a social statement as well. And here's an image of Sokari Douglas Camp as well, working on her steel sculpture. So she's a fascinating artist. Check her out. She's really phenomenal. Anna Weeder, thank you so much for the super chat. I guess I'm going to have to bring on... Oh my gosh, they're so funny. I just love this. Thank you so much, everybody, for your support. And here's another one by Sokari Douglas Camp, and it's called Primavera. And it's cool because if you compare that against, say, somebody like Ray Dawn, this is such a romantic, pretty portrayal of spring. And when you go back and you look at Douglas Camp's piece, it almost has this tension to it that is not what you typically see. And so I would definitely think about the cliche, because there are so many cliches out there for the personifications. Maybe you want to embrace the cliche. You really want to recognize it, but maybe you want to step outside of that. So I would just keep that in mind as you are all brainstorming. Yeah, Jazz says, wow, her sculptures are way bigger than they looked in the first picture. I know sculptures really do not get represented well online and in digital photos, but look her up. Her work is really outstanding. Emily says, that's like Canadian spring. I love that. That's hilarious. All right. The Art Dare Leap, for those of you who are interested, this is not required. This is for people who want something a little bit more substantial. I know some people have created full out bodies of work based on the Art Dare Leap. And so the leap for this month to create 2 pairs of the traits per week. Okay. 2 characters. Sorry, it should say 2 characters. Okay. So total for the month, you're going to make 4 of your worst traits and 4 of your best traits. So it's basically you do the Art Dare, but you do it every week. Okay. So some of you might have fun with that because we all have many traits. We're not going to run out of traits to illustrate. Let me go over the structure of the Discord because quite a lot has changed since we launched our new website. And I want everybody to make sure they know where everything is because some things are not the same. So the first thing is join the Art Prof Discord. We have so much fun in the Art Dares channel, seeing what people post. Tell me in the chat, have you learned from people in the Art Dares channel? Have you gotten inspiration from seeing what other people do? Have you felt motivation just seeing what other people do? It's really, really fun. So yes, Paula, thank you for asking. 2 traits per week, 1 positive, 1 negative. Yep, it's a lot. Yeah, it'll be challenging if you decide to do the leap. It is not a small amount of work, but I know some people like having that structure to motivate themselves to do more. So this is the Art Dares channel in the Discord, and the invite link is in the video description below. We also have pinned messages that are in the Art Dares channel. So if you need to find information, the upload form, the link on our website is all there, easy to find. On the new artprof.org, I want to show you where the Art Dares is because it's no longer in its own menu. And you should explore the site. The site is amazing. And again, I'm not taking any credit. It's from our wonderful volunteer web developer, Dee, who did an incredible job. And oh my gosh, I don't even know what I did to deserve that. But you want to go to artprof.org and you want to click on Learn and Create. And you can see on the left, there's a link for Art Dares. So if you click on that, that will take you to all the Art Dare pages. So if you want to go back and look at old ones or look at the winners, you can definitely click on those other links. But you'll see July is in the upper left-hand corner. And that page basically has all kinds of resources for you. So some of the films and TV shows we mentioned, some of the artists, we have links, we have the prompt written out, we have tips, different videos that we think are going to assist you. So it's really worth it to visit the site because it's all in one place. The other thing is if you are not on Instagram, we do have an upload form that's on this page. So you can see that's the link. And it's a new form. It's a Google form. It's way better than what we had before. It was a little wonky. So this should be pretty straightforward. However, we do really prefer that people submit on Instagram. If you're on there, just tag us art.prof. Use hashtag ArtProfDare. Oh, and this is a good tip. Lisa says, may have to ask friends about good traits. That's a really good idea because I think a lot of us, unfortunately, have trouble doing that sometimes. And Ariel says, I've been very motivated by the Art Dare and Art Dare participants. Absolutely. Oh, this is cool. So Jane says, I asked my husband what he thought mine was. Okay, cool. So do that. Kwee says, this Art Dare is too much. I tried before. Now I don't even know where to start. Start with our brainstorming video. Start with that list. Make the list, and then you'll find that once you've written it down on paper, it gets a lot easier. We also love to share your Art Dare submissions on Instagram. We have a highlight where you can see all of the other submissions, and we put them into our stories. So please tag us and use hashtag ArtProfDare so we can share all of the entries. We do have some very cool honorable mention prizes. For example, we have these new prizes from Sticker App. These stickers that were designed by Lauren and Kat. These are super cool. And we still have this coupon code available. It expires in a few days. So if you want to use it, you better use it soon. And the link is in the YouTube video description below. Franjali says, I found out about a lot of my good traits because of what other people wrote in my graduation yearbook. Asking your friends will definitely help. Oh, I love that. That is awesome. Great resource. We also have Kat's middle school comic journal, which is hilarious. And prize winners will get things like you can choose between a portfolio critique, a website critique, 5 months access to the Discord voice channel. So all sorts of fun things. Art Prof has a podcast. It's available on Spotify and also on iTunes. And in a few minutes, I will be in the Art Prof Discord, hanging out in the post live streams channel. Invite link is in the YouTube video description below. So we can chat more. Maybe I can give some of you some tips, some ideas for how to get started. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, leave a comment. Don't you all want to see us hit 500K? Now that we're at 102K, we only have a few more to go before we hit 500,000. Thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters. We have 2 pages of slides, and poor little Julie Atkinson is all by herself on the 3rd slide. And remember, when you support us, you're supporting somebody who can't afford an art class. So keep that in mind. Support us. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.